Evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 2022 Tri-County Sustainability General Meeting. Tri-County Sustainability is the sustainability hub for the 101 towns, 10 legislative districts, and 1.2 million people in Burlington, Camden, and Gloucester counties. Please, everyone, put your name, town, and county in the chat, and we have a great agenda tonight. My name is Patrick McDevitt, and I'm part of the growing TCS leadership team. I live in Gloucester County, Monroe Township. I chair the TCS Energy and Transportation Committee. And for a little background, I've spent more than a decade working in the energy sector, first for what is now Tesla's solar business. And currently I manage energy efficiency programs for one of New Jersey's largest utilities. I'm one of the administrators of the South Jersey Electric Vehicle Club, and I run point on our Tri-County Electric Vehicle Showcase events. I'm also an avid biker and kayaker, and I like to be outside as much as possible. Now, let's bring in our friend Vicki Benetti, who will be my co-host this evening. And in addition to her prolific career at the Environmental Protection Agency, Vicki is a multi-award-winning South Jersey sustainability hero and an eco-mentor to all of us. Hey, Vicki.
Hey, Patrick, and hello, everyone, and greetings from beautiful Washington Township, the one in Gloucester County. One of 5 in the state, but we like to distinguish ourselves. I think we have a terrific program this evening, and so let's get right into it. In the leadoff spot tonight, it's time to talk mass transit. Historically, most of us would agree that South Jersey has been somewhat underrepresented when it comes to our public transportation options. New Jersey Transit has made some great strides recently. A big part of that is our secret weapon. The head of the Cherry Hill Green team also happens to be a member of the New Jersey Transit Board of Directors. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to welcome back to our friend, Councilwoman Sangeeta Doshi. Hi, Sangeeta. Are you muted? I'm afraid she may be muted.
Vicki, Sangeeta may be having some technical issues. If possible, maybe we could go right to RJ, and RJ could give us an overview of the PCG Bus Initiative.
Thank you. RJ, can we turn to you?
Certainly. And
thank you.
Great. And when Board Member Doshi is able to join us, we'll certainly pause for a moment and let her say hello. In the meantime, I'm going to pull up a presentation that we have on a bus network redesign project that we have for the 3-county area, which I'm very happy to share with you today. And I know I have my associate Barbara Lazaro from our Government and Community Relations Office, and she may join in at some point just to help keep me on point. So bear with me one moment. Okay, and view. Okay, and just to check with you, is everyone able to see my screen right now?
Yes, looks good, RJ.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me here today. And on behalf of New Jersey Transit, I'd like to thank you very much for letting us talk to you about our project. Our project officially is the Burlington, Camden, Gloucester Bus Network Redesign Project, or New Bus BCG. And it's an attempt by New Jersey Transit in an effort to look at how the bus system functions today and how it should function in the future. And it's a big project. We're really taking a comprehensive look at the bus network, and we're very excited about it. Just for introduction, my name is RJ Palladino. I'm the Senior Director for Capital Planning at New Jersey Transit. Very excited to be working on this project, and I think it offers a lot for potential for the region. So let me just advance here. So a question that we have about bus network redesign, and again, bus network redesign is thinking about how we comprehensively approach how the bus network is structured in Burlington, Camden, and Gloucester. And a question that comes up is, well, why now? And there's several different reasons. And one, we know that COVID-19 has accelerated changes in travel patterns, but our bus network has been largely unchanged for decades. We certainly make adjustments, tweaks, and changes, whether it's because of conditions or sometimes in response to growing ridership. It hasn't had this comprehensive look in quite some time. We know on some lines we've seen declining ridership in recent years. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a bus network out there. And this is aligned with our NJT 2030 strategic plan, which really called for looking at bus network redesign statewide. The thing that we found, though, is that we need to look at each area responsive to its individual needs, and what might work in one area doesn't necessarily work in another. And we really want to have a custom solution that's appropriate for the area. So some of the things that we are looking to do here is that the bus network redesign is meant to align with customer needs and with available resources. That means identifying what we have available for today and for tomorrow to put towards bus network needs in the region. We want to ensure inclusive and equitable mobility, connecting individuals and communities to key destinations. We want to enhance the customer experience and really reverse interstate bus ridership declines within the study area. Again, we think that the market is healthy for bus service, and we want to make sure that we're offering service that really aligns with those needs. So when conducting a bus network redesign, we'll make the service more attractive and more equitable to current and future users. And what this entails is a detailed analysis of how well the existing system meets the needs of our customers, a robust outreach effort that continues to engage the public and stakeholders throughout the study area. We want to identify new activity centers and emerging travel destinations. And just a note on that, we know that that's not necessarily all just journey to and from work. There are other reasons that people ride public transit to get to other locations, whether it's for shopping, education, healthcare, a variety of reasons why people ride public transit. And we want to have service recommendations that we can implement. That's something that we can put out on the road and not something which is a far off in the future type of plan. So when we talk about this study area, and it's big, we're talking about 27 different NJ Transit bus routes that operate today. Pre-pandemic, this was carrying about 24,000 weekday riders. We know we have close to 700,000 people living within a quarter-mile distance of these routes. And we know that we have over 200,000 jobs that are within a quarter-mile of these routes. So it's a healthy market, and there is a great potential there. We're hoping to really try to capitalize on that. So in terms of key milestones and where we've been and where we're going, we initially started, like every good school assignment, with our homework. So we did data collection and analysis. This included a survey of our existing ridership base, a look at how routes are performing, not only for ridership, but also for on-time performance, reliability and consistency, looking really how the service functions. We've been working on goal setting and service strategies. We did have both a public meeting and a meeting with stakeholders in March. I've spoken with the DVRPC and various other stakeholders, and meeting with your group is right along lines of how we like to outreach and talk to people. We're developing draft service recommendations right now, and that's where we're moving into right now as we get towards late spring, and certainly feels like summer today. And our goal is to have some final service recommendations this fall and into the winter. We have this ongoing stakeholder and public involvement process going out, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to be doing for that really in the upcoming months. So in terms of that initial data collection, one thing that we have, which is a little bit different than when we traditionally did these type of studies, location-based user data, cell phone data. It gives us aggregated data, letting us know where people are traveling to. They're not necessarily all on public transit, but we can see those centers of activities and those connections between points. Certainly our bus ridership data and our customer survey data is important. And also looking at population trends and travel patterns to really get that picture of what the market is like today and where it may be headed. So our project status, again, we had our stakeholder and public meetings. They were held in early March, and we're working on this goal setting and concept development. We are looking at some pop-up events and outreach this summer. We'll have some events at some of our busier park rides, certainly Walter Rand Transportation Center, and even some bus stop level locations. And the idea is that rather than make people come to us, we'll go where our customers are, trying to talk to people about their experience on the bus, what they'd like to see different, what they like about it. Finally, I'd like to invite you to visit njtransit.com, and we have a page, new bus-BCG. If you get to njtransit.com, though, it should be pretty easy to find, searching under new bus. And we have this feature now called Story Map, and Story Map offers to allow people to really sort of crawl under the hood. A lot of times when planners are working on stuff, you get kind of like tonight, you get a kind of very general summary. You don't always get to see the detail. Going to the Story Map site will allow people to get more information about what we're looking at right now, what we're seeing in terms of market trends, and eventually, as we get to recommendations, some detailed information on those recommendations. So that is my quick intro to the project. I want to make sure to be available to answer if you have some questions. And thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thanks a lot, RJ. We did see one good question in the chat. Is this study taking into consideration the expanding reality of folks working from home?
Yes, and I mean, I think that's part of some of the travel pattern change that we're seeing. I can tell you one of the things that we see, and it's interesting to see how travel patterns have started to reassert themselves. Weekends are still quite strong and are much closer to being back to their pre-COVID levels. Weekdays, we do tend to see a tendency of busier on a typical week, maybe not one with a holiday, that Tuesday through Thursday tends to be that busier time. And it definitely, there's more of a real sort of almost like pyramid or triangular shape to the ridership, where it is lower on Mondays and Fridays, which, you know, for a lot of people, that may be how they choose to have that flexible work pattern. So thinking about where we need to have service and how we situate it in a way that it can still respond to those changing patterns, I think is an important point.
Great. And one other question we saw pop up is the links to, service in Philadelphia part of the study as well?
Yes, and
a lot of folks transfer to go to Philly as well, we know.
They certainly do, and I think as we know, there have been some changes to our service into Philadelphia, and we're happy that service is going to be returning back to Philadelphia a little more robustly than it had been over the last month or so. And we know that's an issue and a concern that we did hear from our ridership base. And that still is a healthy market, and it's one that we have to factor into, in that destinations don't only include New Jersey destinations, but also to that Philadelphia job, education, and healthcare market.
Great. Thanks a lot for the update. We really appreciate it. And we'll be sharing all the links to the study as well, and encourage folks to participate more. So thank you. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about healthcare. We have some good news. Dr. Lisa Cercio has joined us and has joined our new South Jersey Regional Air Quality Committee. Everyone knows how big the healthcare industry is in our region. And did you know that hospitals are responsible for almost 5% of the global CO2 emissions? The good news is that people like Dr. Cercio are working to address that. Tonight, she joins us to discuss her work to promote environmental resiliency in our South Jersey healthcare system. Hi, Lisa, are you there? Oh, are you able to hear us?
She was here, Patrick.
Maybe we can jump over to Sustainable Jersey and then come back to Doctor.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Sam?
Yep, sure. Just give me just a second. I'm just going to put my headset on.
Patrick, you want to give the intro?
Sure. So we recently were able to have Sam, Lauren, and the rest of the Sustainable Jersey team at our event in Blackwood at the Sustainability Center. So we wanted to welcome back Samantha to give us a little update about what's the latest with Sustainable Jersey. Thank you, Samantha.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me just turn my camera on. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Great to see how many people are online tonight. So that's awesome. Yep. So I just want to give a few updates from Sustainable Jersey. So if you haven't seen or heard, we are holding our Sustainability Summit on June 24th. We're going to be back at Bellworks in Holmdel this year. It will be an in-person event. We're really excited to be back in person. It's going to present a lot of great networking opportunities. We're also going to have an EV ride and drive, which I think will be a lot of fun for everyone. I know there's a lot of great interest in EVs, as was evident by your event on April 30th. Great turnout, some great cars there. We are also going to be holding 2 equity workshop sessions, which is going to feature an outside facilitator. So really looking forward to that. And participants who are involved in those 2 sessions are going to walk away with skills and strategies to build more equitable and inclusive practices and policies in their communities. So a great all-day event. Hopefully you can join us, and the registration information is all on our website. The second update that I have is we do have a funding cycle available. It's sponsored by Atlantic City Electric. So grants are available to municipalities that are located in Atlantic City Electric service territory for environmental stewardship and resiliency projects. So even if you have an open Sustainable Jersey grant from another cycle, you are still eligible to apply for that. And there's a pretty good odd of getting a grant. So if you're thinking about applying, please take a look at our website for more information. We also have a recorded webinar that is available there. Another opportunity for some support on our Sustainable Jersey for Schools program. So the Empowered Schools opportunity is back again, which we're always very excited about. And we're actually having an info session tomorrow at 3 p.m. You can find out more about that on our grants page and register for the info session there. Basically, the program provides free support and resources to educate pre-K through 12 school students in saving energy and money in schools and homes. So if you are in New Jersey Natural Gas, South Jersey Gas, Elizabethtown Gas, and if you are serviced by PSE&G, both electric and gas, those schools are eligible to apply. So if you're working with your schools, or if you're joining tonight from a school, it's a really awesome opportunity. Please, sign up for the info session and consider applying for some support. And then the activities that you do through that program also help you earn credit for actions in the Sustainable Jersey for Schools program, which contribute towards your Sustainable Jersey for Schools certification. And the last thing I just want to mention is, if you are with a school or working with a school, the final certification deadline is on June 15th. And for the municipal certification cycle, we're currently in the first round of reviews. And the second resubmission deadline is August 28th. We did move the cycle up a little bit more this year to give some more time between the second reviews and the Sustainable Jersey Luncheon in November to help get towns certified. So thank you everyone that submitted applications. We got a great turnout, and we look forward to seeing what you're doing and sending them back to you, and then getting them back in August. Thanks, Patrick. That's what I've got.
All right, great. Thanks so much for the update. I'm being told that we do have Dr. Cercio was able to rejoin us. Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties. My computer wasn't cooperating.
We're getting used to that with these meetings, but please feel free to share your activity that you've been involved with.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation. Let me see. Are you all able to see this?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, Wonderful. My name is Lisa Churcheo. I am an internist and a hospitalist, and I've been involved with some sustainability work, specifically in greening healthcare. I've been the chair of health and public policy for the American College of Physicians, the New Jersey chapter. ACP is the second largest group of physicians, second to AMA. So I'm going to just do a very, very exceedingly brief overview of health and climate change, and then we'll go on to a little bit of what we've been doing in the state and the task force that we gathered. So obviously, everything that is happening with the environment impacts our health, whether it's air with particulate matter 2.5, which has impacts on cardiovascular system, our respiratory system, even cognition and birth outcomes, things like nitrogen dioxide associated with incidence and worsening of asthma and respiratory conditions, ozone, certainly water, and whether we're talking about water pollution or floods, droughts. When we look at land, we not only talk about things like crop yields, which are decreasing in terms of a rising CO2 concentration, the actual nutrient value is also decreased. And life, because we're certainly entering into the Anthropocene, and so the impacts on biodiversity have obvious impacts on health. So the tenet is that we cannot have healthy people on a sick planet, and that's something that in medicine we're increasingly realizing. And when I give this talk to people in New Jersey, I'll stress the fact that average temperatures have already risen in New Jersey, almost 2 degrees Celsius, and in some part that's due to the AMOC. There's jet stream currents, and the poles rising quicker than the equator have a lot to do with the rapid rise in this area. So again, just exceedingly quickly, and I'm happy to talk offline if anyone has questions about health and climate change, but we'll often think about these earth systems and then the mechanisms by which they can impact health. So if we take something like higher temperatures, floods, and droughts, which can lead to something like wildfires, that can then lead to respiratory disease because of all the particulate matter, acrolein, formaldehyde, all of these other things that are in the air. It can lead to cardiovascular disease, and it can lead to mental health and even maternal adverse outcomes. This is a nice infographic from the CDC, which again just has a very broad strokes overview of all the systems that can potentially be impacted by climate change. And again, we could go into each one of these in great detail, but I'll just suffice it to say that there's a lot of impacts. Every organ system that you can refer to can have a corollary impact from climate change. Sorry if this got cut off a little bit, but so that this was one of several factors that look at the overall impacts of particulate matter and air pollution. This one estimates at about 9 million deaths, and if you're looking at the cumulative impact, that's more than any violent crime, that's more than tobacco smoking. So the impact of premature deaths far outpaces. There is some other work from the T.H. Chan School of Public Health that puts that number at over 10 million, which ends up being about 16% of all global deaths. So it's certainly a huge public health factor and something that physicians should care about and should be working on. We often will talk about environmental racism and environmental justice in this issue, and certainly we see a lot of economically deprived patients, and we see the outcomes on the social determinants of health. Again, all of this is a talk in of themselves. Particulate matter 2.5, you can see here some of the impacts. There's some more definite, there's some associations, but certainly it's wide-ranging impacts. And because they are so small, they can get into the distal airways, the distal alveoli, and traverse into the bloodstream. And it's because they get into the bloodstream that they can then cause an inflammatory reaction. And so it's that inflammation that is thought to lead to a lot of the cardiovascular events. CVA is a cardiovascular event like a stroke, or an MI is a heart attack. So it's a lot of it is that inflammatory pathway that leads to these adverse outcomes. And this is an infographic from New England Journal of Medicine, just showing cardiovascular disease and the numerous ways that it can be impacted, whether it's from climate change itself and temperature extremes. We know that today was extremely hot, and we know that cardiovascular disease, arrhythmias, heart attacks all happen more in these temperature extremes. And we've also seen that with COVID, some of the racial discrepancies that we've seen with COVID outcomes are in part due to exposure to particulate matter 2.5. And this was borne out in studies from Italy, from China, and also here in Boston, that there's a 15% increase in COVID-19 death rate for every 1 microgram per meter cubed increase in particulate matter 2.5. So with all of that as a backdrop, this justifies why it's so important for us to be doing sustainability in our backyard, in our hospitals, in our clinic practices. And so if we look overall at the global healthcare sector, healthcare in and of itself would be the 5th largest emitter, and just the US healthcare center or healthcare sector would be the 13th largest emitter. It would actually put us above South Korea, above the UK. And we know that our health system is very wasteful on many standpoints, and we don't necessarily get better access or quality of care with that those excess greenhouse gas emissions, that excess waste. So you end up with this non-virtuous cycle. And in this study by an anesthesiologist, it resulted in 388,000 disability adjusted life years just from pollution. And so you end up with this non-virtuous cycle where the healthcare sector is causing poor health. We have people coming in to get treated. That results in more waste, more climate and environmental degradation, which then exacerbates poor health. So what we wanted to look at was what we could practically do in the healthcare setting, looking at scope 1 emissions, which are direct emissions, scope 2, which are indirect, like purchased goods, mainly purchased electricity though, and then scope 3, which is the largest share, and that's everything else. So that's things like prescriptions. It's all of the non-medical equipment and the medical equipment. It's laundry and waste disposal, commuting. So the scope 3 emissions, really, you could have a big bang for your buck looking at that. And again, looking at the overall impact, that scope 3 is 80% of the greenhouse gas emissions from the healthcare sector. So if we look overall throughout the hospital and the outpatient setting as well, there's several areas. Certainly our clinical care is something that I'll frequently talk about, but there's many interacting systems that we can also lean on. So we had gathered a task force of representatives of many of the major healthcare systems across New Jersey, and we wanted people to give their insights. And what we came up with was 13 overall categories that we thought that the healthcare industry should get behind and should focus on. Some of these are general things like waste, things like energy. Some of them are very, very specific, like greening the OR, and some of the chemicals that we use, and infrastructure resilience, which is actually a piece to this, because we've seen from Hurricane Katrina and Ida and Maria that we have to have resilient healthcare systems in the face of climate emergencies. So I'm just going to go through some of these. I have the link on the bottom for the full document. It's 35 pages, so I don't know if y'all are going to feel like reading through all of that, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of these. So for leadership, and again, my apologies that this is formatting a little bit funky, but so leadership is incredibly important no matter what industry you're in. You want to have top-down leadership, and I have some suggestions here for who should be part of a green team, because certainly getting buy-in from physicians, from nurses, from people in your lab and infection control can certainly help to build excitement about this. There have been some interesting works on financing, because many hospital systems have very tight operating margins, often a 2% operating margin. And so the business case becomes really critically important. We have to take care of patients. We have a lot of other responsibilities. So thinking about creative financing and considering things like power purchase agreements or shared savings agreements. as I was saying, that the procurement is really important. So talking about what we're going to do with our scope 3 emissions. And because we are large health systems in general, we can put pressure on supply chain, and we can demand certain things in terms of packaging and decrease waste and reusability even. When we're looking at waste, there's hard and fast targets that we can try to set. So a lot of waste is generated just by one hospital day, usually about over 30 pounds per day. So we can set a target of maybe 20 pounds per day. We can try to minimize some of that red bag or hazardous waste, which is automatically incinerated. We can work on our recycling and work on composting and waste diversion. When we're looking at things like water, there have been creative solutions like indigenous resilient landscaping, but we also think about the water that we're using to clean our hands and switching to an alcohol-based hand scrub where there's no impact on infection control, which is obviously a concern. The OR is really a huge opportunity because it produces about 30 to 40% of a health system's waste, and per square foot, it's about almost 6 times more energy intensive. So I've spent a lot of time focusing on the OR, even thinking about the type of anesthetic gases that we're using, because different anesthetic gases are more potent in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. Things like nitrous oxide are almost about 3 or 250 or so times more potent than CO2. So thinking about how we can diversify our anesthetics so that they're less potent. And our energy systems, certainly, we can make use of energy audits, we can divest from fossil fuels, but eventually moving towards renewable energy should be a goal for many health systems. And then education, whether it's within our own health systems, whether it's educating colleagues, nurses, pharmacists, but also educating the public and educating our patients. There have been some very creative studies done on this, educating pediatric populations and their parents. So this is certainly an opportunity for us. In agriculture, often in a lot of communities, the hospital cafeteria is one of the biggest restaurants in the area. So thinking about Meatless Mondays, thinking about offering more plant-based diet options are good for patients, and it's certainly good for the environment. And we talked about things like composting. There's also things like the Cool Food Pledge, which is New York based, and it helps to, it offers a calculator, it helps to decrease your emissions. The goal is about decrease by 25%. When we're thinking about chemicals, that can be the chemicals that we're cleaning with. We have obviously very high infection control standards. So cleaning with green products, it's also good for hospital employees, but also if we're purchasing, making sure that we're purchasing with less caustic chemicals. Construction, when we're talking about construction, a lot of the hospitals that we're building now will be around for the next 50 years. And only 3 of the, I think it's 2,700 or so buildings that are LEED certified are actually healthcare LEED certified. So there's a lot of opportunity to build around LEED design. And travel. So installing EV stations is wonderful, but also thinking about our whole fleet of ambulances and decreasing idle time, and incentivizing virtual participation, trying to minimize people going to conferences. People love to go to their annual conferences, but trying to switch to virtual options. And then healthcare system resilience. So there's a lot to this. There's a lot to not just the healthcare system becoming resilient, but integrating with non-governmental organizations, with communities. Because if you have an infrastructure that's resilient with the hospital, but you have flooding in the environs and the ambulances can't actually reach the hospital, then you don't have a resilient system. And this has happened before in parts of New York and Connecticut, where hospitals have worked on their resilience, but the community hasn't. And so the patient care has still suffered. So this was a very, very quick overview, but I did just want to highlight some of the important things about climate smart and resilient healthcare. I do also talk a lot about the benefits of going green that are more tangible, with overhead costs, morale, engagement, and community health. And there are certainly other resources, including Healthcare Without Harm, Practice Green Health, and now the American Hospital Association, which provides some excellent guidance on this. And My Green Doctor is wonderful for the outpatient setting. So I will stop there. I will stop sharing, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments from the group.
Well, Lisa, I just want to, oh, I have feedback. Are you okay now? Okay. Am I okay is the question, I guess. I just want to let you know we have some very positive comments. Appreciation that you're actually doing such an incredible and systematic review and implementation approach to all of these many issues. And one of our colleagues here has a question, again, appreciation that you're looking at the impacts of climate change on health. The question is, can you give us a sense of how widespread that appreciation is, the connection between climate change and health among physicians?
Yes, so there have been several studies done on this, and as you might expect, so physicians are well-read and are scientists, and so many will understand, about 90+% understand the impacts. They don't feel that they have the necessary tools, the education, because certainly I wasn't taught this in medical school. This is now just beginning to come to the fore. In 2035, the ACGME, which is the regulating body for internal medicine, has put in place a climate health fellowship in internal medicine. That's in 2035. There's been a call in 2019, 200 medical journals put out an editorial saying that we need to take this very seriously. The AMA has put out a suggestion, not yet a mandate, but that climate and health needs to be integrated in medical schools. It's not yet mandated though. Certainly some schools are farther ahead than others. But medical students are really driving this at a lot of medical schools. So they're pushing their deans, their faculty to build this in more rapidly.
Well, that's great. I think that the more we can get the message out, the better off we are, of course. And everyone knows that physicians are very trusted people in our population's lives. So I think that this will be a terrific asset. I have another question, which is, we know that you mentioned how large the healthcare industry is and how powerful it is because of that. And I think we all can recall that Walmart made such strides in actually impacting energy consumption because they had such huge purchasing power worldwide. Right. So we saw the size of detergent containers being reduced and all that sort of thing because of Walmart. It seems to me that there is a great impact of scale on the part of the healthcare industry. Are there particular areas where you see that happening, or?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. So I'm going to go back to England. So the NHS is far ahead of us. So they are laser focused on sustainability. They're aiming for net zero at 2050. So they're already building in plans for their supply chain now. Now, granted that's UK, but because of globalization, there is some overlap with our interconnected supply chains. I mean, we saw this with Hurricane Maria when Puerto Rico was hit, and we had huge supply chain disruptions of our IV fluids, which were largely made on the island. So certainly there's the globalization perspective is important. There are, because that the US healthcare system is not nationalized like the UK, it's a little bit harder to get traction, but we are starting to see some of that. So there are health systems like Kaiser Permanente, which is already going carbon neutral. There is, Stanford, there's Gunderson, there's plans for a lot of other places. So it's starting to catch up. But my hope is that with a lot of the modeling, there's a slightly slow rise, and then it starts to increase more logarithmically.
Well, thank you. I think you've given us so much to think about, and I'm betting that a lot of us are going to look to make sure that the healthcare industry is better represented on our green teams because we have a lot to gain from that and hopefully something to give. So thank you so very much. One of our participants asked if the slides will be available, and it's a good time for me to mention that, of course, this whole meeting is being recorded. So all of this information will be available to.
I'm happy to share.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We do greatly appreciate it. It's interested in sustainable innovation. And I'd like to bring in our colleague, Ed Cohen, to tell us about a new strategy that mixes technology with the natural world. Ed?
Hi, this is Ed Cohen from Mount Laurel. And I'm just here actually to introduce our main speaker, Dr. AJ Both, an extension specialist with Rutgers University. He has a PhD from Cornell University in the Department of Agriculture and Biological Engineering, and he will be talking about Agri-Voltaics. Dr.
Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Let me start sharing my screen. I hope you can see this. I'll start.
Looks good.
As Ed said, my name is AJ Both. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Environmental Sciences at Rutgers University in the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences. And I'm also a member of a relatively new program called the Rutgers Agri-Voltaics program. And that program consists of about 12 staff and faculty that is tasked with investigating the potential benefits of agri-voltaics for New Jersey conditions. And so I'd like to share with you what we have been working on over the last year and a half or so, and give you an idea of where we think this technology may go in the near future. So first, I'd like to share with you what we think agri-voltaics is not. And that doesn't mean that what I'm just going to show you here is a bad idea. It only means that we think, our group thinks, that this is not something that falls under the term agri-voltaics. So the first thing that we list here is a solar farm. You're probably familiar with them. If you drive around New Jersey, you see large pieces of property converted into a solar farm, panels mounted close to the ground. And that typically means that there is no more agriculture possible on that field. And since these systems are going to be in place for at least 20 years or so, that means that that land is no longer available for agriculture. We also think that agrivoltaics is not a solar farm with a few small animals grazing, for example, sheep or chicken. And finally, we don't think agrivoltaics is a solar farm combined with apiaries or pollinator habitats. Again, these are all interesting ideas, and we certainly think they have a place, but that is not the focus of our group. So we focus on agrivoltaics, as I'm going to define to you shortly, and it's also called dual-use solar. So the main purpose of this technology is that the land will remain in agricultural use, but it will also be used for some solar energy generation. We feel strongly that agriculture should remain the first activity and the main activity on the property, but as I said, we will be adding some solar energy generation. The structures will follow, will allow for multiple types of agriculture. So whether that is animal grazing or hay or specialty crops or regular agricultural crops, all of that should be possible using this agrivoltaics approach. And the goal is, at least the goal that we have in mind, is that combining agriculture on that property with agrivoltaics, with photovoltaics, will provide a better return, a lower risk approach to agriculture compared to the traditional sole agriculture activity. And of course, there are added benefits. It keeps the land available for agriculture, which is an important goal that we have in New Jersey. Think about the preserved farmland that we have. And it also contributes to New Jersey's renewable energy goals. As you know, those are fairly aggressive. By 2050, we should at least have all of our electricity come from renewable energy sources. And 2050 is not that far away. So this is a major challenge that we have set for ourselves. So again, we don't think solar farms, as you see an example here, are agri-voltaics, because as I said, it takes most of the land out of agriculture production. So it's no longer about farming, it's only about electricity generation. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. We think, if you think about agri-voltaics, that's not the direction we need to go into. Again, we do not think that agri-voltaics is combining photovoltaics with sheep grazing. It is an interesting approach, and it's certainly done in different locations around the state. But if you talk about agri-voltaics and follow the definition that I just outlined, this is not an activity we feel falls under agri-voltaics. And finally, as I mentioned before, we don't think creating pollinator habitats or apiaries around solar farms is a good fit with the terminology agri-voltaics. So what is agri-voltaics? I'll give you some examples. So here you see an example of grazing cattle. So we want to minimize the impact of the panels on farming by perhaps elevating them and increasing the distance between the rows of panels. And as you can see here, there's relatively little impact. Clearly, you're going to get some shading on the land below, so you will very likely get some reduction in this case, growing grass. But on the other hand, you're also generating electricity. And again, if these two activities combined provide a better income for the farmer, then we think we have a winning situation. Another idea that we discovered in Germany are these vertically mounted panels. And you may think that this is not a very good use of solar panels, but these panels are oriented in rows that are going north to south. And so you're collecting solar panels, solar energy when the sun is coming up in the east and during the morning hours, and when the sun is going down during the afternoon hours on the west side. And because these panels are bifacial, you generate electricity early in the day and later in the day. And that means that you can offset your electricity generation from the typical solar situation where you generate most of your electricity during the middle of the day. So this will allow some spreading of the production throughout the day hours and not produce as all the other systems during the middle of the day. These vertical panels can also be installed in multiple heights. Here you see a system with double rows mounted one on top of the other, and the post spacing is designed so that large equipment like this mower can still move easily between the rows of panels. So the impact again on the agricultural activity is relatively minor. Colleagues at the University of Massachusetts have also done some research and published some of their results about agri-voltaics. Here you see one of their installations using so-called fixed tilt panels that are oriented at a fixed angle facing south, elevated above multiple rows of vegetable crops. There's a very interesting approach to this idea in Colorado, Jack's Solar Garden. And in this case, they have installed so-called single axis trackers. So these panels are rotating around a horizontal axis, following the position of the sun throughout the day. So they are facing east in the morning. They are more or less positioned horizontal during the middle of the day. And then at the end of the day, they're facing west. And so there's a system that automatically rotates these panels as the sun moves to the sky. And this particular installation is called the community solar system because not only is the electricity used on the farm, but because it's a fairly large installation, the excess electricity is used by the community, by individual homeowners that are connected to this system and are reaping the benefit of this particular enterprise. In France, they use similar systems that are elevated much higher. Here again, you see single axis trackers, so these track throughout the day again to try to capture as much sunlight as possible, but they are elevated high enough that large equipment can pass underneath, again minimizing the impact of the system on the agricultural activities underneath. And in Germany, they use similar systems that are also raised quite high. In fact, these are raised so high that a regular combine harvester is able to move underneath these systems and conduct regular field operation, again, with minimal impact on the farming activities from the solar panels. As I said, we are doing research in New Jersey, and we have received an appropriation from the state of New Jersey with the intent of installing a variety of agri-voltaic systems at 4 farms that are operated by the New Jersey Ag Experiment Station. You see the locations indicated by stars across the state. In New Brunswick, at our animal farm, we want to install one of these vertical installations, panel installations that I showed you earlier. And then at 3 more sites at the Bridgeton and at the RARAC, Rutgers Agricultural Research and Extension Center in RARAC, we want to install a relatively large system, and then 2 smaller systems, one at our Snyder farm and one out at a farm we called Cream Ridge, indicated in this slide. So with the funding from the state, we hope to complete these 4 installations in the next year or so. And after that, we intend to do agricultural field trials, both for animal production as well as field crop production and vegetable production, to get solid data that we then hope can be used by regulators such as the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, who has been tasked by the state to implement a dual-use solar pilot program. And they need information to set the standards and the guidelines for that pilot program. And we hope to provide them with a lot of our research results in order to implement the particular guidelines they need for that program. We're doing some preliminary research at Rutgers as well, both at our animal farm and at the in South Jersey at our Rutgers Agricultural Research and Extension Center. We have installed some simple designs using plywood panels, because at the moment we didn't have the funding to install real solar panels, but these plywood panels are simulating what the impact might be of various installations on things like the local weather, including temperature, humidity, soil radiation data, as well as soil conditions such as soil temperature and soil humidity. So we're collecting all this data that will inform us what we think the impact will be once we have these real installations installed at our various research sites. And finally, we're also looking at the more engineering side of things. We have developed several models that are looking at shadow patterns, because obviously these panel systems will create shadow bands. And depending on the design of these systems, those shadow bands will move more or less throughout the day, creating more heavier shadow bands or hopefully less heavier shadow bands. And by simulating the light conditions around and underneath the various panel designs, we can make assessments about the impact that might have on the various crops or animal systems we'd like to trial in and around these systems. So with all of that, we hope to get a good set of data that, again, we can help our regulators with at the state, who are going to implement a pilot program that is trying to look at the same idea of agri-voltaics, but now installed at real farms. And hopefully that will then once and for all demonstrate that this idea has merit in New Jersey and warrants further expansion across the state. So with that, I'll close, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And you have my email address on this slide and the first slide if you want to contact me later offline. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you.
Dr. Both, thank you so very much. Thank you for disabusing us of the incorrect interpretation we had of what agri-voltaics must be. This is fascinating, and it actually is a whole new area. One of the questions that we did get was the question that you have, and you are trying to address by looking at the shadow patterns. Is there evidence at this point as to what the impact might be of this decrease in sunlight, or is that something that is wholly open to investigation?
There is some information already available. For example, if you have a fixed tilt system that is typically facing south and is relatively close to the ground, so a typical solar farm installation, you will have an area underneath the panels that is heavily shaded throughout most of the day. But if you increase the elevation of the panels and you also make them track the sunlight, now you create shadow patterns that are much less pronounced and also move throughout the day, and therefore have a much smaller impact on the agriculture that you want to do around and underneath the systems. So yes, we have some quantitative data. We want to verify that obviously when we have our real systems installed.
But I suppose that would also open up another horizon for the agricultural community in terms of trying to match the crops that might be grown under specific conditions of sunlight.
Exactly, and that's part of the research we want to do. We want to experiment with a variety of crops. Some of them that we know can deal with shade, some of them that we know are perhaps benefiting from less intense solar radiation during the middle of the day and during the middle of the summer season. All of that is going to be important for us to understand how the farmer can benefit from these systems once they are installed.
Well, this is very exciting. Thank you so very much for your presentation and for educating us about this whole new horizon. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
We appreciate it. And if there are more questions, of course, we can forward them to Dr. Both later as well, but don't hesitate to add them in the chat. Thank you. Well, let's move along. Next on our agenda, we're going to build a bit on what we discussed at the top of the meeting tonight. If we're going to get more South Jersey residents riding mass transit, it has to be a good experience. Recently, our friends at the Delaware Valley Association of Rail Passengers elected a new president, Anthony Lanzalotti, and he is here with him tonight. So we want to congratulate you, Anthony, and we hope you will discuss your personal advocacy on behalf of passengers with disabilities. Welcome to TCS.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be here. So the Delaware Valley Association of Rail Passengers, we represent rail passengers throughout the greater Delaware Valley. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell. It's what we do is advocacy to improve the passenger rail experience for all. Last week, we just met with some folks at New Jersey Transit to discuss improvements on the Atlantic City rail line. That's we're trying to coordinate meetings with SEPTA in Philadelphia, where we also participated in hearings in Montgomery County for the approval of the Schuylkill Valley Corridor. That was an establishment of a tri-county rail authority. We don't know how the authority was established. We're not quite sure as to how it's going to play out, who will administer those services, but it's a start. It's a little about my personal experience. I'm totally blind, and of course, going green is near and dear to me. But having essential transit in all forms, whether it's passenger rail, whether it's bus, et cetera, is of course paramount to my success. A little more about me personally. I've been doing this. I've been blind since birth, so this is second nature to me. And I use all the systems. It's how I get around. It's how I function. A little more about me. I'm a college student. I'm a poli-sci major at Stockton with a political science and criminal justice and minor in disability studies. And the goal is to go on to law school and further my advocacy work.
Very good. We really appreciate the update, and we really hope that your voices will be heard with the new redesign of the bus systems that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting. And of course, we'll forward any appropriate questions we get over to you as well. Thank you. So now we're moving on, and again, we're going to hit on another topic we did talk about, solar. As Tri-County sustainability continues to grow, we have some great talent joining our leadership ranks. As we know, and we heard earlier, the rapid deployment of solar is crucial if we're going to meet Governor Murphy's emissions goals. And it's now my pleasure to bring in our new TCS Solar Committee Chair, Randy Orlow. Randy has an extensive background working with sustainability nonprofits, including extensive professional experience in the solar industry. Randy is a lifelong New Jerseyan and a resident of the beautiful borough of Marlton. Hey, Randy.
Hello, thank you. I have to warn you all that my presentation is only going to be about 3 minutes, and if you if you're expecting my PowerPoint to look anything like what we've just seen, you're going to be greatly disappointed because it took me about 3 minutes to do my PowerPoint. So I just need to warn you in advance. I just wanted to, I'm just going to give you a little update on where we are with community solar. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can it work? Nope. Come on. Okay, we'll just have to go back to this. It's taking, sorry. There we go. Okay, so community solar, just quick overview. Community solar farms, just similar to what we were just talking about, without the dual use. And what solar farms are built, residents within a certain geographic area can sign up for to be part of a community solar project. And if they're unable to be part of to have solar panels in their house, if they live in an apartment or you know, they have a lot of trees or whatever reason it would be that you would be unable to have solar panels on your home, a community solar project enables you to get the benefits of solar energy without having to put panels on your home or apartment. So this has been, community solar has been a pilot program that has been run, it's regulated by the Board of Public Utilities, and it is now a permanent program. And I will start off by going into the positive things. Here's the good news about community solar. So moving forward, the first year was 75 megawatts of power of solar energy. Power was reserved for year 1, year 2, and moving forward, it's 150 megawatts a year. So that means that pretty soon we're going to see projects all over. You know, right now, currently, as we speak, where I live in Marlton, in Burlington County, there is not a project available to sign up for, but that is going to change with as many projects as there that we're going to see in the future. We'll all have that availability to us. The majority in New Jersey, the majority of the energy is reserved for low and moderate income residents, which is fantastic because everyone receives a discount on their electric usage costs, but the larger discounts are typically provided for low and moderate income households. And those discounts can be anywhere from 10% typically to up to 25%. So that's the good news. But there's obstacles. And there are quite a few obstacles in New Jersey, and I've only listed 4, but there are plenty more than that. And to be completely honest, the framework for the New Jersey Community Solar Program is very promising, but the program itself has not, it's not working as it should. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Some of them I'm listing here. One of them that I didn't list here is just the fact that you can sign up within, if you are within a certain geographic area, rather than a utility territory, which would be so much easier. So then you could really shop around and see what projects are best for you, and then you wouldn't have to wait for a project to come to your area. So especially in New Jersey, where the utility territories are pretty big. So lot of things that need to change. Dual billing is, you know, very difficult right now, because what it means is that you would be billed by your community solar provider in addition to your regular utility bill. And what we want is that those bills would be combined. It would be consolidated billing, and it's something that's going to happen, but it's not an easy fix, and it's just taking a really long time for them to do something about it, and it's a pretty critical piece. The Board of Public Utilities has just impossible requirements for income verification for low and moderate income households, and it's such a huge barrier for people to sign up. It's just way too much paperwork, way too much agony for someone to have to go through to save 15-20% on their electric usage. So those are things that, you know, community solar providers are fighting for, and solar developers are fighting for, and certainly we as citizens definitely have a voice to fight for too. But the two things that I'm really going to focus on for us to think about is that the biggest obstacles right now for this program to be successful in New Jersey is that there is a lack of awareness. Nobody knows about it. People don't know about community solar, especially in underserved areas where it's needed the most. And if they do know about it, if you do speak to somebody about community solar, there is just this huge skepticism around it. Again, in just underserved areas were hit hard by nefarious groups selling third-party energy, and not all third-party energy groups are nefarious, but a lot of people were basically ripped off. And you know, they were, all sorts of promises were made about how much money that they were going to save, and it didn't happen. So yeah, people really, when you talk about community solar, they hear the word solar and they hear the word energy, and those two words are giant turnoffs for most people because of the bad experiences that people have had. So what I want to propose, what we've talked about at Tri-County to propose, is what can we do together as a group? What can we do as citizens to help this program become a success? And how can we get, how can we strategize to get the word out and to build trust around this program? So we're proposing that we come up with a community solar strategy group, a think tank, if you will, and if anyone is interested in joining us with strategizing and coming up with some solutions, or trying to come up with some solutions, my email address is here. You can, sorry, it's not Ingo, it's info@tcsahub.org. Sorry, told you 3 minutes. It was probably 2.5 minutes that I did this. So yeah, if you're interested, please just send us an email and let us know, and we'll work on forming a group together and work on this together, because again, the framework is to be such a great program in New Jersey, to be so helpful for people who really need it, and to really address energy and environmental and economic inequity, and take it head on. But as it stands right now, it's not working. So join us in the fight.
Great. Thank you, Randy. We certainly know there's challenges, and as this rolls out further, we hope to be part of the solution. So if anyone does want to get involved, please send us an email, join us on the Discord, and your voice will be certainly heard. Next up, we had slated Gina Cole to present about her committee, food waste reduction. Unfortunately, she had to jump off to go to another meeting. She did put her update in the chat. And again, if that's an area of interest to you, please get in touch with us and we'll get you in touch with Gina as well. So we thank her for that update. Next, moving on, we're going to move over to our TCS Stormwater Management Committee Chair, Lorraine. Lorraine, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have two short things I wanted to tell you folks about. I am stormwater concerned. One of them is about stormwater, and it's something that I posted a while ago on our TCS Discord chat area. It has to do with how decisions are made at the state level by a lot of things. Excuse me, that's my dog growling. Excuse me. Very often things happen that we're not aware of because of any number of things, but this has particular interest for those of us who are interested in stormwater and the ability that our towns have to be able to govern themselves when it comes to protecting themselves and, of course, we citizens from stormwater problems. This was first reported by ANJAC to us back in February, and since that time we've heard from the Delaware Riverkeepers network about the same thing. And basically what it has to do with is stormwater regulations that involve new projects in towns. You may have heard when we were doing the when some ordinances were required by the state that each town had to adopt that had to do with green stormwater infrastructure. And basically, ordinarily when New Jersey sets standards or minimum standards for regulations, the towns can then make them stricter as needed. But there's actually a movement afoot at the state level by builders organizations to limit a town's ability to customize these ordinances, which is a very unfortunate thing. What it's basically doing is taking power away from our own municipal governments. So on June 16th, there's a meeting between the DEP and the State Department of Community Affairs to discuss this. And so far, they're hearing an awful lot from the builders. So what has been proposed is that resolutions be set up and issued by municipal governments, by environmental commissions that state support for the fact that towns should be able to customize their own stormwater management ordinances. So there is something that has been put together. It's a draft resolution, and it's going to be posted in our chat. So if you can get this to your commissions, environmental commissions, your governing commissions, municipal bodies that would handle this, reach out to those folks and ask them to please issue this resolution. It's the kind of thing that if they're not hearing from the towns themselves, it's going to be very easy to take this power away. And the power that they're taking away basically is to have municipalities make the rules a little bit stricter for green stormwater infrastructure and when it is required. Because if not, they'll be following what the various builders organizations have been requiring. So far, there's been, let's see, 12 governing bodies have issued a resolution and 20 environmental commissions have passed these resolutions. So the more, the better. So I just wanted to let you folks know about this. So if you've got any kind of influence in that area, that would be a good starting point to get that moving. Okay, the other thing I have to tell you about is it's not necessarily related to stormwater management, but it's something that I think it's a really lighthearted solution to some things that a lot of us might be facing in our local environments. I belong to an organization called Sadler's Woods Conservation Association, and it's an old growth forest in Haddon Township, New Jersey, which is in Camden County. And recently, we volunteers, which is what we all are, had just too much of trying to get rid of English ivy, poison ivy. It was just growing up the trees and taking over the old forest. We managed to keep track. We managed to keep control on the areas where the old growth trees are, but the rest of the forest is just getting overrun. So recently, the organization, which is nonprofit, we had a big fundraiser, and it's still going on, to bring in goats to eat up all of the bad stuff. And we fenced off 5 acres of the forest and let go and rented 40 goats, which came down from New York, and they are currently eating all of the bad invasives that are there. So it's if you have any interest, or if you know anybody, if this ever comes up, if you're looking for somebody who has been through this, contact us at Sadler's Woods Conservation Association. The steps that were involved were pretty convoluted, but nevertheless, it's working out, and you can see the goats operating to this day. It's quite expensive, and it's something that we are hoping to do every year to actually bring the quality of the woods back up to where it should be. So that's my report from Stormwater Management. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. You know, everybody now is very curious as to how much does it cost to rent a goat?
Yeah, I'd love to do like a poll. How much do you think it costs? But this is the biggest expense that this Sadler's Woods Conservation Association has ever done anything for. And we managed to get a lot of sponsors, not as big as as we would like, but I will tell you that it's just to bring 40 goats down from Rhinebeck, New York, for 10 days. This includes the fence, the insurance, the help from the farmers. They come down and like we put up the fences ourselves. It's $20,000. And then it's another $9,000 for the incidentals, like promotions and T-shirts and an assortment of things. So there you go, quite a bit of money. I think we're going to make our goal. We've got a very good supportive group here. I hope we make our goal, because I'm tired of peeling English ivy off of oak trees, I'll tell you.
Well, fascinating. Just add this to the list of things we've all learned tonight. Just amazing.
Hey, if you want to see them in action, it's so heartwarming. People should just show up down at the woods. You could take a look. Don't touch them. They're covered with poison ivy. Don't feed them. They're supposed to be eating the bad stuff in the woods. But they're in there. They're like machines that are alive. They're wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Another eye opener. Well, okay. Next on our agenda, we're going to be talking about environmental justice, which touches all aspects of the sustainability community. We'd like to congratulate our new TCS EJ committee that's done some great work connecting and partnering regionally with organizations at the local and at the state level this past year. Bill Johnson is not with us this evening, but Sharonda Allen, I think, is going to give us an update on what's happening there. So Sharonda, can we ask you to clue us in, please?
Yes, hello. Thank you so much, Vicki. So we have been building on the success of our Green Jobs event that we had this spring on March 18th. It was very well attended, I would say, for a quote unquote COVID era event. And we're continuing to partner with government agencies and other environmental organizations to focus on improving air quality, inclusion in the clean energy economy, working with our solar team to expand community solar participation for low to moderate income households, and there's more to come shortly. So in the chat, if you can put EJ and then your name to let us know whether you want to join our efforts, we will get back to you. We'll put a little tab by your name, screenshot it, and you can join us in some of these environmental justice efforts.
Great, thank you, Sharonda.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so please, if anyone has any interest, we want to expand that committee and there's lots of work to do. So please let us know your interest and we'll connect you up with everybody. Sharonda, was that it for you for tonight or do you have anything else?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So next up, moving right along, we're going to talk about the ever-changing plastics and recycling landscape in New Jersey. So our plastics and recycling chair, Jeremiah Williams, is here. And I did have the pleasure of attending their first meeting they had. And we just wanted to say hi, Jeremiah, and can you give us an update on the latest?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good, thank you.
Beautiful. All right, so the latest of the update was I created a survey that I actually did the initial draft on Green Day in Collingswood, where I had 26 items actually on display from my household that I collected. And I ran a survey in Collingswood, and I got about 30 responses where you had to say whether it's trash, curbside recycling, compost, or any other recycling, because of course there is other places to recycle that you can't put in curbside. So I did tabulate some of the results. I haven't done any analysis on that. I know I'm working with Sean with some ideas of how we can get that online so that we can do more and bigger market research as far as where we are, who we have to market to, and in terms of education and what, from the information, where we're at, where we're lacking, and how we can improve things moving forward with getting more people to be on board. Randy, I'm thinking that might be something you might want to consider once we're done, as far as that, to kind of generate some support with your group as well. So just something to think about. But that's where we're at now. In July, maybe I might have a PowerPoint or something to have more details on that. That's all I have for now.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Patrick.
No, you're good.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremiah. We both talked over you, and I apologize. Well, we're nearly at the end of our allotted time for this meeting, but we do have a few minutes for updates from anybody from the floor, as it were. If we have any announcements or any news to break here, or any hot information to share about projects that you may be working on, please let us know. Marty, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Vicki. And congratulations on that award that you were just given. I just saw that in the Discord, I believe. Appreciate the fact that you're being acknowledged for the work that you've been doing for quite some time in your own town. And also wanted to let you know, Jeremiah, who just spoke, and I will be offering a program on composting a week from tonight at the Mount Laurel Library, and everyone is invited. It's an in-person event, and we're hoping to share a lot of good information about composting. If you've got questions, bring them along. If you've got answers, bring those along, because we'd love to hear from people who are actually doing it. I'm not, so I'm a real newbie, and I'm kind of learning from the ground up. So, and this would be a great program for people who live in apartments or condos who can't, do their own compost pile right outside without disturbing all their neighbors. So we have some solutions for those folks as well. So we look forward to seeing you there. It's 7 p.m. at the Mount Laurel Library. Thank you.
Marty, can you say what's the date on that program?
Yes, it's June 7th. It's a week from tonight.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll put the information in the Discord about that. Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much. Anyone else want to share any information about coming up activities? Well, I'll just share something that made me think it was a brilliant idea. And that is the announcement by, I guess, the governor and DEP that all of the parks and recreational areas in New Jersey are going to be open to everyone, free of admission this summer. And so it's great. You know, it's an opportunity for all to enjoy our wonderful natural areas and recreational areas. And maybe we all can take advantage of it, but also share the news. Nothing like being outdoors that makes people appreciate it. I see Ed has an announcement in the chat. That, he posted Marty's announcement, so great, thank you. Anything else that you want to announce, you can post in the chat as well. We'll be saving that. I don't see any other hands. Patrick?
Okay, I think we want to say a big thanks to all of our speakers tonight. Unlike the usual meeting we have, we actually stuck to our time pretty well tonight, so we appreciate everybody doing that for us. We're going to stop it here because it's the end of our scheduled time and we do respect everyone's time. We do want to remind you to please keep in touch with us on the TCS Discord, via email, or of course on our social media. A recording of tonight's meeting will be posted on our Tri-County Sustainability YouTube channel. Yes, we have a YouTube channel as well. Please check that out. All of our great clips from previous meetings are up there. To finish out, thanks again, everyone, for attending, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.